budget on Wednesday, of course, and you might have noticed one or two people queuing up to give the Chancellor, George Osborne, plenty of advice about what he should and shouldn't do. The south of England's often described as the engine of the economy. So what message would the Stokers like to see sent up to the bridge? Martin Dare-Edwards is the chair of the Oxford Local Enterprise Partnership. Apologies for calling you a Stoker, but it is the engine of the economy, isn't it? And some would say, well, regeneration should be happening in other places than the south of England. If the Chancellor's got spare cash, spend it in the places where they need the jobs most.
Well, it's also a matter of making things that are good actually great and globally competitive, and that's really where Oxfordshire comes in. We were delighted that the approval given by the government to establish an enterprise zone in the southern part of the county, the Oxfordshire Sciencevale Enterprise Zone, and that actually has an opportunity to take some already leading technologies and opportunities for growth in business, actually to grow those also on an international scale, and actually importantly also improve the economy by increasing exports.
So is the government investing in our part of the world in terms of regeneration, creating jobs? I mean, you're not applying to the Regional Growth Fund.
No, we aren't. We got pretty clear advice actually from the various government departments that the Regional Growth Fund is indeed devoted more for the north and west of the UK, and so no, we are pursuing things by other means, and it's more a matter of making compelling cases for investment. Infrastructure will be a key issue for us in Oxfordshire. I'm sure many people will agree with that, and particularly infrastructure then also to support the enterprise zone and other areas of the county where we foresee growth. The Oxfordshire L.E.P has in fact 3 spatial priorities, not just the south of the county. It includes Bicester and includes also the Oxford City region. And those also have a number of infrastructure problems which we will be seeking support for funding.
When we talk about Bicester, we so often talk about house building. Do you think the planning changes are going to help businesses, the ones we've already seen? And do you think there should be more support for things like house building?
I think there's actually really isn't much of a problem in terms of house building.
Well, it's getting the space. Bicester maybe not.
Yes, and I think there are already there's a lot of opportunities, I think, within Oxfordshire for houses. It's more actually the development land is the issue, and the facilitating of planning in that regard. The local development order and the simplified planning arrangement that we've been setting up in the southern part of the county associated with the enterprise zone, foreseeing actually to use that as a template to convey to other parts of the county, which I think, using Eric Pickles' term, we'll designate as growth zones.
Yes, and growth, because whilst being the engine room, whilst being successful and prosperous, we can create more jobs possibly here than could be created in other places, and then maybe people would have to come in and do those jobs.
I think it is a both and, but you're quite right. There is also an opportunity of bringing in considerable investment from abroad, which is important. It's investment in businesses which maybe also tap into the technology developments from our 2 world-class universities here in Oxfordshire, and then actually generate businesses that create products that by design and by technology are differentiated and can be sold to the rest of the globe, and also make the whole county much more resilient to changes in local economy.
Right. Golden future or gloomy future? Which one?
Golden.
Golden. Andrew Smith, let's bring you in here. Do you think the Chancellor, has he been borrowing enough? Do you think he'll have to borrow more to get the whole country growing?
Well, our argument's been that whilst, of course, the deficit needs to be tackled, that the government has actually been cutting too fast. And as a consequence of that, they've actually had to borrow £158 billion more than they were planning. But looking at the budget, I agree with Martin. I mean, infrastructure investment is very important. Investment in science is crucial. This part of the world, we need to keep that up. We do need investment in our transport infrastructure, and there's always a danger that government's tempted to channel regional money to other parts of the country and risk strangling the goose, which is laying the golden eggs.
Were you saying that all through those last 13 years?
Yes, I was, yeah. And I was arguing, and indeed, as Chief Secretary to the Treasury, I signed off £263 million to establish the Diamond Lightsource synchrotron at Didcot. So we did make some big investments in Oxfordshire and in the south. But we need to keep focused on that. Just as saying us about the budget, the Chancellor has to do something about petrol prices and diesel prices. This is hitting families and businesses in our region and across the country very hard indeed. And there's been a report by the Centre for Economic Research which shows that if he holds fuel duty, or better still cuts it a little, it would actually generate jobs and pay for itself in the revenue it brings in. I very much hope he's going to listen to those representations because it's hurting people out there.
Yeah. You agree with that, Nicola?
Yeah. On fuel issues, I do think that something along those lines would be welcome. But, there has been quite a lot of announcement in terms of rail investment for Oxfordshire. We've got East-West Rail announcement, 270 million. We've got the Chiltern Rail line coming along. But I also think that one of the big challenges, certainly for Oxford West and Abingdon and the region, is roads investment that we need. The A34 causes so many problems. It's a major, trade route from Southampton up to the Midlands. And I think that it has had so little investment for so long. We do need to be looking at how we can start improving that route, because when something goes wrong on just one part of the A34, the ripple effects are significant, and people sitting in traffic jams does cause not only an environmental problem, it also causes a knock-on effect economically, because people are economically inactive while they are sitting in a traffic jam. But the
last improvement on the A34, just not to leave that, was the Newbury bypass. That was a huge problem, so it's not going to happen, is it?
Well, I think that you can't not make the case for something that needs to be done, because the last time something that was done, it didn't go well. I think that we've got to look at how we can solve a problem which is becoming an increasing problem and is causing people's lives an absolute misery. But the other issue, which I think I'd like to be looking at, is not only sort of R&D encouragement within the budget. We have huge high-tech within Oxford West and Abingdon, so many scientists and researchers, and that is a big focus, I know, for the L.E.P and Martin's work. But also we need to have the proper skills base. And so the apprenticeship scheme, which is working, has been very successful. We've had over 36% increase in Oxford West and Abingdon, but I'd like to see that extended to the younger age group, because I think that would be a really positive extension of a scheme which has been working already well.